The ship looked like it was dying, and maybe it was. But Captain Elena Vasquez loved it anyway. She stood on the bridge of the Amaranth and watched the stars through a cracked viewport that had been patched with metal from 3 different alien ships. And she smiled because this ugly, broken, impossible vessel was the only home she had left. 50 years had passed since the Dominion Empire conquered the outer colonies of humanity. And in that time, they had taken everything from her people, their worlds, their freedom, their dignity, and their hope. But they had not taken this ship. The Amaranth groaned as it moved through the cold darkness of Sector 9. And Elena could hear the old engines struggling to push them forward. Could feel the vibrations in the floor plates that told her the ship was held together by nothing more than welded scrap and stubborn human will. "Captain, we have a Dominion patrol on long-range sensors," said Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka from her station, her voice calm but tight with the tension that never quite left. Any of them, Elena nodded and looked at the display screen that flickered with static every few seconds because they could never find the right parts to fix it properly. "How many ships?" she asked. "3 cruisers, standard formation," Yuki replied. "They are changing course to intercept us." The bridge crew did not panic because they had done this dance 100 times before. And they knew what was coming next. The Dominion would hail them, and the aliens would laugh at their ship. And then they would let them go because the Amaranth was not worth the energy it would take to destroy it. That was what the Dominion believed. And Elena was happy to let them keep believing it. "Open a channel when they hail us," Elena said. Same as always, she settled into her captain's chair, which was actually a modified mining rig seat bolted to the deck with salvaged Dominion screws. And she waited. The Dominion Empire had ruled this part of the galaxy for 10,000 years. And all that time, they had never met a species they could not crush beneath their boots. They were tall and pale, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed with a cold blue light. And they looked at humans the way a person might look at insects crawling across the floor, useful for simple labor. They said, but too primitive to ever be a threat. The communication screen flickered to life. And Elena saw the face of a Dominion officer staring at her with a mixture of boredom and disgust. "Human vessel," the alien said, its translator turning the harsh clicking sounds of its language into flat English words. "You are in restricted space with an unregistered ship that appears to be constructed from garbage. State your purpose or be destroyed." Elena kept her face calm and her voice humble, the way humans had learned to speak to their conquerors. "We are salvage collectors." "Honored officer," she said. "We search for scrap metal and broken equipment to sell at the labor stations. We mean no offense and carry nothing of value." The Dominion officer made a sound that might have been laughter. "Scrap collectors in a scrap ship," it said. "How fitting for your kind. Tell me, human, does that vessel even have weapons?" "We have 1 small laser cannon for cutting metal," Elena lied smoothly. "It can barely scratch paint off a hull." The officer turned to speak with someone off screen, and Elena could hear more of that clicking laughter in the background. "My crew wishes to know how your ship stays in one piece," the officer said when it turned back. "They are taking bets on which part will fall off first. We ask ourselves the same question every day." "Honored officer," Elena replied. The Dominion officer waved one of its 4 hands in dismissal. "Go. Scrap collectors, continue your pathetic existence. You are not worth the ammunition it would take to end you." The screen went dark, and Elena let out a slow breath as the 3 Dominion cruisers turned away and continued on their patrol route. "They never get tired of that joke," muttered her first officer, Commander David Chun, from his station beside her. "Let them laugh," Elena said quietly. "Every time they laugh at us, they prove how little they understand what we really are." She stood up and walked to the center of the bridge, looking at each member of her crew in turn. These brave men and women who had given up everything to fight an enemy that saw them as less than nothing. I received a message from our contact on Vareth 7 last night, she said, and everyone stopped what they were doing to listen. Prelate Xyrexis is moving his armada through Sector 9 in 3 days. The name sent a chill through the bridge. Xyrexis was the monster who had ordered the burning of Elena's home colony 20 years ago. The alien who had stood on his flagship and watched as millions of humans died in fire and radiation. The creature who had called it pest control in his official report. Where is he going? David asked. Ashfall Station, Elena said. And she saw the fear flash across their faces, because Ashfall was the last free human colony, hidden in a nebula at the edge of known space, home to nearly 100,000 people who had escaped Dominion rule. He knows where it is, and he is bringing 300 warships to wipe it from existence. Silence filled the bridge. Captain, Yuki said carefully, what are we going to do? Elena looked at the cracked viewport, at the stars that humans had once dreamed of reaching, at the vast darkness that the Dominion believed they owned. We are going to stop him, she said. David stepped closer, his voice low and urgent. Elena, we have one ship. One broken ship held together with wire and hope. Xyrexis has an armada. This is not a battle we can win. This is suicide. Maybe, Elena agreed. But Ashfall has no defenses, no fleet, no warning system that can detect the Dominion coming. If we do nothing, everyone there dies. My sister is on Ashfall, David. Her children are on Ashfall. 100,000 humans who thought they had found freedom are on Ashfall. She turned to face her crew. These 23 souls who had followed her through hell. I am not ordering anyone to come with me, she said. This mission is volunteer only. If you want to leave, I will drop you at the nearest station with supplies and my gratitude for everything you have done. Nobody moved. We have been running for 50 years. Captain, said old Samuel Wright from the engineering station, his gray hair and lined face telling the story of a man who had spent his whole life under Dominion rule. I think I would like to stop running, one by one. The others nodded. Elena felt tears threaten to fall, but she held them back because there would be time for tears later, maybe. If any of them survived, then I need everyone to meet me in the cargo bay in 1 hour, she said. There is something you all need to see. She left the bridge and walked down the narrow corridors of the Amaranth, past exposed wiring and past hull sections, past the sleeping quarters that smelled of oil and recycled air, past the mess hall where they ate protein paste and dreamed of real food. She found Chief Engineer Marcus Cole in the lowest deck of the ship, in a section that was officially listed as damaged storage on all their records. Marcus was old, older than Samuel, and his dark skin was marked with the scars of a lifetime spent working in Dominion shipyards and factories. He looked up when Elena entered, and his eyes held a light that she had learned to trust over the 15 years they had served together. They laughed at us again? He asked. They always laugh, Elena said. Marcus smiled, and it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a man who had been waiting for something for a very long time. Good, he said. Let them keep laughing. He pulled back a tarp that covered something massive in the darkness of the cargo hold, and Elena looked at the device that Marcus had been building for 15 years. The machine that the Dominion had taught him to create without ever knowing it. Is it ready? She asked. It is ready, Marcus said. The question is whether we are. Elena thought of her sister on Ashfall, thought of the children who had never known Dominion chains, thought of the millions who had died and the millions more who still lived as slaves. We are ready, she said. Tell me again how this works. Marcus put his hand on the machine that could change everything. They taught us to build their ships, he said. They taught us to maintain their weapons. They thought we were too stupid to understand what we were doing. But we understood, Captain. We understood everything. And now we are going to teach them what happens when you give humans the tools to fight back. Marcus Cole had been 12 years old when the Dominion took him from his family and put him to work in the shipyards above Kepler Station. He remembered his mother screaming as the soldiers dragged him away. Remembered his father trying to fight back and being struck down with a weapon that burned holes through flesh and bone. Remembered the cold blue eyes of the Dominion officer who said that young humans made the best workers because their small hands could reach into tight spaces that was 60 years ago. And Marcus had not seen his family since the Dominion put him on a construction platform where they built their greatest warships. The massive dreadnoughts that could crack planets and burn entire civilizations to ash. And they expected him to work in silence and ignorance until he died. But Marcus had a gift that the Dominion never understood. He remembered everything, every schematic that passed, before his eyes stayed locked in his mind forever. Every weapon system he helped install became a blueprint he could never forget. Every conversation between Dominion engineers that he overheard while pretending not to understand their language became knowledge that he stored away like precious treasure. For 40 years, he worked and watched and learned. And the Dominion never suspected because humans were too primitive to understand their technology, too simple to be anything more than tools with legs. When Marcus finally escaped during a rebellion that cost 10,000 human lives, he carried the secrets of the Dominion Empire in his head, and he swore that one day those secrets would burn them all. Now he stood in the cargo hold of the Amaranth and watched the crew gather around the machine he had spent 15 years building. "What is that thing?" asked Lieutenant Tanaka, her eyes wide as she looked at the device that filled most of the hidden compartment. "The Dominion calls it a singularity core," Marcus said. "It is the heart of their most powerful warships, the thing that gives them the energy to jump across star systems and fire weapons that can melt mountains." He pointed to the twisted metal casing that surrounded the core, metal that glowed with a faint purple light. "I salvaged this one from the wreckage of a Dominion flagship that was destroyed in battle 12 years ago. It took me 3 years just to repair it, and another 4 to figure out how to connect it to human technology." Commander Chan stepped closer, his face a mixture of fear and wonder. "How did you get it to work?" he asked. "Our power systems are nothing like theirs." "That is the secret," Marcus said. And he smiled because this was the part he loved explaining. Dominion technology is powerful, but it is also rigid. They build everything the same way they have built it for 10,000 years, because they believe their way is the only way. Humans are different. We adapt, we improvise. We take things apart and put them back together in ways that nobody expected. He walked around the machine, pointing to the different components that made up the whole. "This section here uses plasma conduits from a Dominion cruiser, but I have modified them to accept energy from our human fusion reactor. It should not work according to Dominion engineering principles, but it does because I ignored their principles and found my own way." "And this?" Elena asked, pointing to a massive cylinder attached to the core. "Nuclear pulse amplifiers," Marcus said. "Old Earth technology from before we ever met the Dominion. Our ancestors used to dream about using nuclear explosions to push ships through space. I have combined that dream with Dominion plasma technology to create something new, something they have never seen before." Old Samuel Wright was examining the machine with the careful eyes of an engineer who had seen many impossible things. "What does it do?" he asked quietly. Marcus took a deep breath. "I call it Prometheus," he said. "When we activate it, the singularity core creates a controlled gravity pulse. The plasma conduit shape that pulse into a wave, and the nuclear amplifiers multiply its power 1,000-fold. Anything caught in the wave will experience gravitational forces so extreme that it will be crushed into nothing. Ships will collapse, armor will crumble. Entire fleets will die in seconds." The crew stared at him in shocked silence. You built a weapon that can destroy fleets? Yuki whispered. I built a weapon that can destroy anything, Marcus said. But there is a cost. The Amaranth was never designed to handle this kind of power. Every time we fire Prometheus, we risk tearing our own ship apart. The hull will crack, systems will fail. We might survive one shot or we might survive 10. I cannot predict how much our ship can take. Elena nodded slowly, her face calm as she processed this information. So we get one chance, she said. Maybe a few chances if we are lucky. And we have to make them count. That is correct, Marcus agreed. What about the scrap on our hull? David asked. The Dominion always mocks us for looking like a flying junkyard. Is any of that part of your plan? Marcus laughed, and it was a genuine laugh filled with years of bitter satisfaction. Every piece of scrap on this ship was chosen carefully. He said, The Dominion thinks we are idiots who bolted random garbage to our hull. But every panel, every plate, every twisted piece of metal serves a purpose. Some pieces are armor from destroyed Dominion ships, capable of absorbing their weapons fire. Some pieces are sensor baffles that make our energy signature look weak and harmless. And some pieces hide the weapon systems I've been installing for the past decade. He walked to a control panel and pressed a button. The crew felt a rumble beneath their feet. And through the small porthole in the cargo hold, they could see the outer hull of the Amaranth beginning to shift metal panels that had looked like random junk slid aside, revealing rows of gleaming weapon barrels that had never been there before. 12 plasma cannons salvaged from Dominion fighters, Marcus said. 20 missile tubes loaded with warheads I built myself, and 4 graviton projectors that can disable enemy shields at close range. I have hidden them all behind panels that look like scrap because the Dominion never searches ships they consider beneath their notice. Elena stared at him with new eyes, seeing for the first time the full scope of what this old man had accomplished. You turned our ship into a warship, she said. I turned our ship into a trap, Marcus corrected. The Dominion sees a helpless piece of garbage. But when the time is right, they will see the truth. And by then, it will be too late. The crew stood in silence, each of them processing what they had learned. Finally, young Sarah Park, the ship's pilot who had grown up in a Dominion labor camp. Will it be enough? She asked. Will Prometheus be enough to stop 300 warships? Marcus met her eyes with complete honesty. I do not know, he said. I have never tested it. I could not test it because any test would alert the Dominion to what we have. All I know is that the science is sound and the engineering is solid. But science and engineering can only take you so far. The rest depends on luck and courage, and the willingness to do what everyone says is impossible. That sounds like every human victory in history, Elena said quietly. She turned to face her crew. These men and women who had already agreed to follow her into certain death. I know what I'm asking you, she said. I am asking you to trust a weapon that has never been fired, on a ship that might fall apart at any moment, against an enemy that has never lost a battle in 10,000 years. I am asking you to believe that we can win when every piece of logic says we cannot. She paused, looking at each face in turn. But that is what humans do, she continued. We believe in impossible things. We fight battles we cannot win. We build hope from scraps and dreams from ashes. The Dominion has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years because they have forgotten what it means to face an enemy who has nothing left to lose. Marcus stepped forward to stand beside his captain. I was a slave for 40 years, he said. Every day I woke up and told myself that someday my knowledge would mean something. Someday I would use what I learned to hurt the ones who hurt us. I am an old man now, and I do not have many days left. But I would rather die firing this weapon than live another year as a forgotten piece of human garbage. The crew looked at each other, and something passed between them without words. They had all lost family to the Dominion, had all suffered under alien rule, had all dreamed of a moment when they could strike back. This was that moment. "Tell us what to do, Captain," Commander Chun said. Speaking for all of them, Elena allowed herself a small smile. "We intercept the Armada in 47 hours, she said. "That gives us time to run combat drills and make sure every system is ready, Sarah. I need you to plot a course that keeps us hidden until we are right on top of them. Marcus, I need Prometheus ready to fire the moment we drop out of hiding. Everyone else, prepare for the fight of your lives." The crew scattered to their stations. Moving with purpose and determination, Marcus lingered behind, and when Elena turned to him, she saw something in his eyes that looked almost like peace. 60 years, he said quietly. 60 years I have waited for this. Do you think we can really win? Elena put her hand on his shoulder. I think we can make them remember us, she said. I think we can show the galaxy that humans are not slaves or garbage or pests to be exterminated. I think we can light a fire that will burn until the Dominion is nothing but ash. And even if we die doing it, that fire will be our legacy. Marcus nodded slowly. That is enough for me, he said. High Prelate Xyraxis stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Divine Wrath, and looked at the 300 warships that followed in his wake. Each ship was a masterpiece of Dominion engineering, built to the exact specifications that had served the Empire for 10,000 years. Armed with weapons that could crack moons and shielded by barriers that no primitive species had ever penetrated. And he commanded them all. Xyraxis was old for his kind, nearly 400 years of age. And in that time, he had conquered 17 worlds and exterminated 6 species that had dared to resist Dominion rule. Humans were just the latest in a long line of vermin that needed to be cleaned from the galaxy. My prelate, said his tactical officer, a young warrior named Krath who had never seen real combat. We have detected an anomaly at the edge of the Calvary Nebula. Xyraxis turned his 4 eyes toward the sensor display, expecting to see a Dominion patrol or perhaps a merchant convoy that had wandered off course. Instead, he saw something that made him laugh. Is that a human ship? He asked, genuine amusement coloring his translated words. It appears to be. My prelate, Krath confirmed. Records indicate it is the vessel known as Amaranth, a salvage ship that has been operating in this sector for several years. Our patrols have encountered it many times. I remember the reports, Xyraxis said. They call it the coffin because it looks like it should be carrying corpses. What is it doing here? It appears to be on an intercept course with our fleet. My prelate, Xyraxis stared at the sensor display for a long moment, then began to laugh again. The sound echoed across the bridge, and his crew joined in because when the High Prelate laughed, everyone laughed. One ship, Xyraxis said between bursts of amusement. One broken, pathetic. Human ship is trying to intercept 300 warships of the Dominion Empire. This is the most entertaining thing I have seen in decades. He walked to his command throne and sat down, still chuckling. Do not destroy it, he ordered. I want to capture it intact. We will take the crew alive and execute them publicly when we reach Ashfall. Let the humans there watch what happens to those who think they can resist us. As you command. My prelate, Krath responded. Should I launch fighters to disable the vessel? Yes, but tell them to be careful, Xyraxis said. I would hate for those fools to accidentally destroy themselves before I have a chance to kill them personally. The fighter bays of the Divine Wrath opened, and 50 sleek combat craft poured out into the void, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a small moon on the bridge of the Amaranth. Lieutenant Tanaka watched them come, 50 fighters incoming, she reported. Her voice steady despite the fear that must have been screaming inside her. They will be in weapons range in 4 minutes, Captain Elena. Vasquez sat in her chair and forced herself to breathe slowly. This was the moment everything depended on. The moment when they had to look weak and helpless while the enemy came close enough for Prometheus to do its work. All hands. This is the captain, she said over the ship's communication system. Remember your training. We need to look like we are losing until Marcus gives the signal. Damage control teams stand ready, but do not reveal our real capabilities until I give the order. The Amaranth shuddered as the first enemy weapon's fire struck. Its hull Elena gripped her armrests and watched. Through the cracked viewport as explosions bloomed against the outer plating. Hull breach on Deck 7, reported Samuel from engineering. Sealing it now. Let them see the breach, Elena ordered. Let them see us struggling. More fire poured in, and the Amaranth twisted and groaned under the assault to the Dominion fighters. It must have looked like they were beating a helpless target into submission, watching it fall apart, piece by piece. That was exactly what Elena wanted them to see. Captain. The divine wrath is moving closer, Yuki announced. I think the prelate wants a better view. Elena felt a cold smile spread across her face. Let him come, she said. Let him get as close as he wants on the flagship. Zyraxis watched the battle with casual interest. The human ship was taking heavy damage, venting atmosphere from multiple breaches, its engines flickering as power systems failed one by one. Pathetic, he muttered. They cannot even run away properly, my prelate. The human captain is hailing us, Kratz reported. Put it on screen, Zyraxis said. I want to see the fear in her eyes. The main display flickered to life, and Zyraxis found himself looking at a human female with dark hair and darker eyes. She did not look afraid. High Prelate Zyraxis, she said, her voice calm and clear, despite the chaos visible behind her. I am Captain Elena Vasquez of the vessel Amaranth. I am offering you one chance to withdraw your fleet from this sector. Zyraxis stared at her for a moment, then burst into laughter so hard that he nearly fell from his throne. You are offering me a chance to withdraw? He gasped between laughs. Your ship is falling apart. My fighters are tearing you to pieces, and you are offering me a chance to withdraw. That is correct, Elena said. Turn your fleet around and leave human space forever. Or face the consequences. The entire bridge crew of the Divine Wrath was laughing now, the sound filling the vast chamber like a wave. Human, Zyraxis said when he finally caught his breath. I have conquered 17 worlds and killed billions of your kind. I watched your colony burn 20 years ago, and I called it pest control. What possible consequence do you think your dying garbage ship can threaten me with? Elena's expression did not change. I understand your confusion, she said. You have spent 10,000 years believing that you are the masters of the galaxy and that everyone else is beneath you. You look at my ship and see scrap. You look at my crew and see vermin. You look at humanity and see a species too primitive to ever threaten you. She leaned forward slightly. You are wrong. Zyraxis felt something stir in his chest. Something he had not felt in centuries. It was almost like unease killer, he ordered. Kill them all. I have changed my mind. I do not want prisoners. But before Kroth could relay the order, something happened. The hull of the Amaranth began to change. Panels that had looked like random pieces of salvaged junk slid aside, revealing weapon systems that made Krath's blood run cold. My prelate, he said, his voice suddenly high and thin. Those are Dominion plasma cannons and graviton projectors. And I do not recognize those missile tubes, but they appear to be armed with nuclear warheads. Zyraxis stood from his throne, all amusement gone from his face. That is impossible, he said. Humans cannot operate our technology. They do not have the intelligence on the screen. Elena was still watching him with those dark, calm eyes. You taught us, she said. For 50 years, you forced us to work in your shipyards and factories. You made us build your weapons and maintain your ships. You thought we were too stupid to understand what we were doing. She smiled. And it was not a human smile of warmth or friendship. It was the smile of a predator that had just finished setting its trap. "We understood everything," she said. "And now class is over." The screen went dark. "All ships fire." Xyraxis screamed, "Destroy that ship now." But even as his order went out, something far below the Amaranth's battered hull was coming to life in the cargo hold. Marcus Cole stood at the controls of Prometheus with his hands steady and his heart at peace. "Weapon is charged." "Captain," he said through the communication system, "then show them what we learned." Elena replied. Marcus pressed the activation button. The singularity core at the heart of Prometheus screamed with power as it created a gravity pulse unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The plasma conduits shaped that pulse, focused it, gave it direction and purpose. The nuclear amplifiers multiplied its strength 1,000-fold, and then it fired the 50 Dominion fighters that had been attacking the Amaranth did not explode. They collapsed. One moment they were sleek, deadly machines of war, and the next they were crumpled bowls of metal, crushed by gravitational forces that their shields could not block and their hulls could not withstand. The wave kept going. It struck the forward edge of the Dominion fleet like an invisible hammer, and ships that had been flying in perfect formation simply ceased to exist as ships. They became wreckage, dense and twisted, their crews dead before they could even understand what was happening on the bridge of the divine wrath. Xyraxis watched 50 of his warships die in less than 3 seconds. "What was that?" he whispered, his voice hollow with shock. Krath was staring at his sensor display with eyes so wide they looked ready to fall out of his head. "I do not know." "My prelate," he said, "I have never seen anything like it. Our shields did nothing. Our armor did nothing. They just collapsed. Get us out of here," Xyraxis ordered. "All ships retreat. Jump to hyperspace immediately." But his navigation officer turned to him with fear written across his alien face. "We cannot." "My prelate," she said, "the gravity pulse has disrupted our jump drives. We are trapped here." Xyraxis looked back at the viewport, where the Amaranth was moving through the debris of his destroyed ships. The human vessel was damaged, trailing smoke and sparks from a dozen hull breaches. But it was still alive, and it was coming for him. "All remaining ships," Xyraxis said, his voice tight with an emotion he barely recognized as fear. "Focus fire on that vessel. Do not stop firing until it is nothing but atoms." The Dominion fleet opened fire. 250 warships pouring everything. The second shot from Prometheus carved a path through the heart of the Dominion fleet. Elena watched through the cracked viewport as another 40 ships collapsed in on themselves, their crews crushed into nothing by forces they could not understand or resist. The Amaranth shook violently as the weapon discharged, and she heard Marcus curse over the communication system. "We lost power coupling on the starboard side," he reported. "I can reroute, but we need to give the system time to stabilize between shots." "How long?" Elena demanded. 2 minutes, maybe 3. "Then we do this the old-fashioned way," Elena said, turning to her pilot. "Sarah, take us into the middle of them. Yuki, fire everything we have." The Amaranth surged forward into the chaos of the battle, its hidden weapons blazing plasma cannons that Marcus had salvaged from destroyed Dominion fighters, sent bolts of blue fire into enemy ships at close range, punching through armor that had never been designed to face human modifications. Missiles launched from tubes that the Dominion had never known existed, each warhead carrying a nuclear payload that detonated against shields and hulls with devastating effect. The Dominion ships fired back, and the Amaranth took hit after hit, its patchwork hull absorbing damage that would have destroyed any normal vessel. But this was not a normal vessel. Every piece of scrap on its exterior had been chosen for a purpose, and many of those pieces were armor plates salvaged from the very ships that now tried to destroy them, Hull integrity at 60%. Samuel reported from engineering. His voice strained but steady. We have fires on decks 3 and 5. And the port engine is starting to overheat. Keep us moving, Elena ordered. We stop, we die. Sarah Park flew the Amaranth like it was an extension of her own body, weaving between enemy ships with reflexes that no Dominion pilot could match. She had grown up in a labor camp, where the only way to survive was to be faster and smarter than everyone around her. And now she put those skills to use in a way her captors had never imagined. Commander Chun. I need those graviton projectors focusing on any ship that gets close, Elena said. Take down their shields so our cannons can do real damage. Already on it, Captain, David replied. And moments later, 2 Dominion cruisers found their shields failing as invisible graviton beams disrupted their protective barriers. The plasma cannons tore them apart seconds later. On the bridge of the Divine Wrath, High Prelate Zyraxis watched his fleet die and felt something he had not experienced in 300 years. Terror. How is this possible? He demanded, grabbing Krath by the collar and lifting the younger officer off his feet. How is one human ship destroying my armada? I do not know, my prelate, Krath gasped. Their weapon, whatever it is. Our defenses cannot stop it, and their ship. It should not be able to move like that. It should not be able to take this much damage and keep fighting. Zyraxis threw him aside and turned to the tactical display. Nearly 100 ships were gone, either crushed by the strange gravity weapon or torn apart by conventional fire. And the human vessel was still coming, still fighting, still refusing to die. All ships focus on that vessel, he commanded. Forget formation, forget tactics, just destroy it. The remaining Dominion ships obeyed, turning their combined firepower on the Amaranth. The barrage was overwhelming, hundreds of weapons firing at once, filling space with enough energy to crack a small planet. The Amaranth's hull screamed under the assault. Shields are gone, Yuki reported. Armor is failing on multiple sections. Prometheus? Elena asked. 1 more minute, Marcus said. We do not have a minute. David shouted as another explosion rocked the bridge. Elena made a decision. Sarah, take us straight at the Divine Wrath, she ordered. Full speed. Captain, that will put us right in the middle of their fire, Sarah protested. I know. Do it anyway. Sarah hesitated for just a moment, then pushed the engines to their limits. The Amaranth shot forward like a missile, taking hit after hit as it crossed the distance between itself and the Dominion flagship. Fires burned across its hull. Entire sections were torn away by weapons fire, and the screaming of metal was so loud that Elena could barely hear her own thoughts. But they were getting closer on the Divine Wrath. Zyraxis watched the human ship coming and realized what they were doing. They are insane, he whispered. They are completely insane. My prelate, should we move? Krath asked, his voice high with panic. No, Zyraxis said, straightening his spine and reclaiming some of his dignity. We are a Dominion flagship. We do not run from vermin. All weapons focus on that ship. Destroy it before it reaches us. The Divine Wrath opened fire with everything it had. Enough firepower to destroy a dozen human vessels. The Amaranth kept coming. Its port engine exploded, sending the ship into a spin that Sarah barely managed to correct. Its forward section was torn open, exposing corridors and compartments to the void of space. Half its crew was dead or dying, their sacrifice buying precious seconds for their shipmates. But still it came. Prometheus is ready, Marcus said, his voice calm despite everything, targeting the Divine Wrath. Fire, Elena commanded. The weapon screamed again, and this time the gravity pulse was aimed directly at the heart of the Dominion Armada. Ships between the Amaranth and the flagship collapsed first, crushed like insects under an invisible boot. Then the wave reached the Divine Wrath itself. Zyraxis had one moment to understand what was about to happen. One moment to feel the terror of a creature that had spent centuries believing itself immortal. Then his ship began to die. The shields collapsed instantly, overwhelmed by gravitational forces that no technology in the galaxy could resist. The hull crumpled inward, decks compressing into each other as the fundamental forces of nature turned against the vessel. Zyraxis tried to scream, but the pressure was too great, his body being pulled apart and crushed at the same time. The last thing he saw was the Amaranth floating before him, broken and burning, but still alive, still fighting, still refusing to surrender. Then there was nothing. Elena watched the divine wrath collapse into a twisted mass of metal and felt something she had not allowed herself to feel in 20 years: satisfaction. Zyraxis is dead, she said quietly. The butcher of my homeworld is finally dead. But there was no time to celebrate, Captain. We have multiple ships still engaging, Yuki reported. At least 150 remain active. Elena looked at the tactical display and saw that the surviving Dominion vessels were in disarray, their formation broken and their commanders panicking without the flagship to guide them. But there were still enough of them to destroy the Amaranth 10 times over Marcus. How many more shots can Prometheus give us? She asked. There was a long pause before he answered. The power coupling is failing, he said finally. I can give you maybe 2 more shots, but after that the system will burn out completely. And there is a good chance the next shot will tear the ship apart. Elena closed her eyes for a moment. They had destroyed over 150 Dominion warships, killed the prelate who had haunted her nightmares for 2 decades, and proved that humans could fight back against their conquerors. It would have to be enough. All hands. This is the captain, she said over the communication system. We have done the impossible today. We have shown the Dominion that humans are not slaves or vermin to be exterminated. Whatever happens next, know that your sacrifice will be remembered. Know that you have given hope to every human in the galaxy. She paused, looking around at the survivors of her bridge crew. It has been the honor of my life to serve with you. Then something happened that none of them expected. A transmission burst across all frequencies. Not from the Dominion fleet, but from somewhere else entirely. A human voice. Attention, Dominion forces. This is Captain Zhao of the vessel Iron Promise. We are entering the combat zone with hostile intent. Surrender now, or be destroyed. Elena stared at her communication display in disbelief. Another voice followed. Then another, then a dozen more. This is the Broken Arrow. Weapons hot and ready. This is the last hope. Engaging now. This is the fury of Earth. Today we fight back. Through the cracked viewport, Elena saw them coming, ships, human ships. Dozens of them appearing from behind asteroids and out of the nebula. Ships that looked just like the Amaranth, held together with scrap and hope and stubborn human will. They had been watching. She realized they had been waiting to see if Prometheus would work, to see if one human ship could really stand against the Dominion. And now they were joining the fight. Where did they come from? David asked, his voice filled with wonder. Elena felt tears running down her face. But she was smiling. From everywhere, she said. They came from everywhere. The scrap fleet fell upon the survivors of the Dominion Armada like wolves upon wounded prey. The battle was over in less than an hour when it was done. Only 19 Dominion ships managed to escape into the void, their jump drives finally coming back online just in time to save them from destruction. 300 warships had entered. Sector 919 flooded and across the galaxy. Humans who had spent 50 years in chains heard what happened and began to hope again. The Amaranth limped toward Ashfall Station with half its hull missing and most of its systems failing. Elena sat in her captain's chair and watched the nebula part before them, revealing the hidden station that had been humanity's last hope for so many Years lights were flickering in the windows of the station. Thousands of them, and as the Amaranth drew closer, Elena realized that people were gathering at every viewport to watch them arrive. "Captain," Yuki said softly. "They are hailing us." "Put it through," Elena replied. A voice came through the speakers. Shaking with emotion, "Amaranth, this is HFY Station Control. We received the transmission of your battle. We saw what you did. The entire station saw what you did." There was a pause, and when the voice continued, it was barely a whisper. "How do we even begin to thank you?" Elena thought of the crew members she had lost, the friends who had died so that others could live, the price they had paid for this moment of triumph. "You can thank us by surviving," she said. "By thriving, by never forgetting what we proved today." The Amaranth docked at the station, and when the airlock opened, Elena found herself facing a crowd of thousands, men and women and children, humans who had escaped Dominion rule and built new lives in this hidden corner of space, all of them staring at her with tears in their eyes. And at the front of the crowd, a woman with Elena's eyes and Elena's dark hair, Maria. Elena breathed. Her sister pushed through the crowd and threw her arms around Elena, holding her so tight that neither of them could speak. Behind Maria stood two children, a boy and a girl who looked at their aunt with wonder and awe. "You saved us," Maria whispered. "You saved everyone." Elena held her sister and let herself cry for the first time in 20 years. The celebration lasted for 3 days. Humans who had lived in fear for half a century danced in the corridors of HFY Station and sang songs that their parents had taught them. Songs about Earth and freedom and the stubborn refusal to give up hope. But even as the celebration continued, Elena knew that this was just the beginning. On the 4th day, she called a meeting. The captains of the scrap fleet gathered in HFY's main hall. 50 men and women who had risked everything to join the battle against the Dominion. Elena looked at them and saw the same fire in their eyes that burned in her own heart. "The Dominion will come back," she said. "They have lost a fleet, but they have 1,000 more. They have lost a prelate, but they have 100 more. This victory has hurt them, but it has not destroyed them." Captain Zhao of the Iron Promise nodded grimly. "We know," he said. "But something has changed for the first time in 10,000 years. Someone has shown the galaxy that the Dominion can be beaten. Word is spreading to every corner of known space. And it is not just humans who are listening." Elena thought of the other species that the Dominion had conquered, the billions of beings who lived under alien rule just as humans did. "We need to share what we have learned," she said. "Marcus's designs, the way we combine Dominion technology with our own. If other species can do what we did, if they can build their own weapons and fight back, then the Dominion faces not one rebellion, but 100. Captain Zhao finished. Elena turned to Marcus, who sat in the corner of the hall with bandages covering the burns he had received during the battle. "Can you teach them?" she asked. "Can you teach others to build what you built?" Marcus smiled, and for a moment he looked younger than she had ever seen him. "I have been waiting 60 years to teach someone," he said. "Bring me students, and I will make them engineers. Bring me scrap, and I will make them weapons. Bring me slaves, and I will make them free." In the months that followed, HFY Station became something it had never been before. It became a school humans from across the galaxy made. The dangerous journey to the hidden station, risking their lives to learn the secrets that Marcus Cole had spent a lifetime collecting. They learned how to salvage Dominion technology and adapt it to human designs. They learned how to hide weapons behind scrap and strength behind weakness. They learned how to fight, and Marcus taught them all, working day and night despite his age and his injuries, pouring everything he knew into the next generation. Young engineers gathered around him in the workshops, taking notes and asking questions. their eyes bright with the same hunger for knowledge that had kept Marcus alive through decades of slavery. Remember, he told them one evening as they worked on a new prototype, "The Dominion thinks we are stupid because we do things differently. They cannot imagine that there might be more than one way to solve a problem. More than one path to power. That is their weakness. Our strength is that we never stop learning, never stop adapting, never stop finding new ways to survive." A young woman named Sarah Chun, no relation to the pilot who had died in the battle, looked up from her work. "Master Cole, why did you never give up?" she asked. 60 years as a slave, and you never stopped hoping. How?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "Because hope is the one thing they could never take from me," he said, finally. "They could take my freedom, my family, my youth, my health, but they could not reach inside my mind and remove the belief that someday things would be different. That belief was mine, and I held on to it even when it seemed foolish. Even when everyone told me to accept my fate." He looked at the young faces around him. "Now I pass that hope to you, not because I want you to feel good, but because hope is a weapon. The Dominion rules through fear. They want you to believe that resistance is impossible, that they are too powerful to fight. When you refuse to believe that, when you hold on to hope despite everything, you have already begun to defeat them." On the Dominion throne world, the Emperor received news of the defeat in Sector 9. He sat alone in his vast chamber, surrounded by trophies from 1,000 conquered worlds, and read the reports of his admirals and generals. 300 warships destroyed by a single human vessel and a fleet of scrap ships. High Prelate Xeraxis, one of his most feared commanders, crushed like an insect. Rumors spreading across the galaxy, whispers of rebellion. Subject species beginning to question whether the Dominion was truly invincible. The Emperor was old, older than any living creature in the galaxy, and in all his thousands of years of life, he had never known fear. But as he read the reports, as he watched the footage of his Armada dying, he felt something cold stirring in his chest. He summoned his advisors. "Prepare the Grand Fleet," he ordered. "I want every ship we have gathered for a strike against human space. We will burn their colonies, their stations, their hidden worlds. We will not stop until every human in the galaxy is dead." His advisors exchanged nervous glances. "My Emperor," one of them said carefully, "the Grand Fleet has not been assembled in 3,000 years. The resources required would be enormous. And there are other threats on our borders that require attention." "I do not care about other threats," the Emperor said, his voice rising. "Humans have wounded us. They have shown the galaxy that we can bleed. If we do not crush them completely, others will follow their example. I will not allow it." He stood from his throne and looked at the stars through the great window of his chamber. "In 10,000 years, no one has ever made me afraid," he said quietly. "But when I watched that human ship destroy my fleet, when I saw that woman's eyes as she refused to surrender, I felt something I had forgotten existed." He turned back to his advisors. "I will not live in fear of vermin. Assemble the fleet, we go to war." But even as the Dominion prepared its response, humanity was preparing as well. The scrap fleet grew from 50 ships to 100. Then 200, then 500 engineers trained by Marcus Cole spread across the galaxy, teaching others what they had learned. Colonies that had been silent for decades began to send messages of support. Weapons were built, plans were made, alliances were formed with other subject species who saw in humanity's victory a chance for their own freedom. And at the center of it all, the Amaranth, the ship had been rebuilt, its hull patched and its systems restored. But Elena had insisted that they keep some of the original scrap on the exterior. "This is who we are," she explained to her new crew. "We are not polished and perfect like the Dominion. We are rough and broken and held together by hope. And that is exactly why we will win." On the 5th anniversary of the battle in Sector 9, Elena stood on the bridge of the Amaranth and looked at the fleet that had gathered around her, over 1,000 ships, each one carrying the hope of a species that had refused to be slaves behind them. Ashfall Station blazed with light, a beacon for everyone who dreamed of freedom, and ahead of them, the stars waited. "This is Captain Vasquez to all ships," Elena said. A voice broadcast to every vessel in the fleet. 5 years ago, we showed the Dominion that humans would not be slaves. Today, we show them something more. Today, we show them that we will not stop until every chain is broken and every tyrant is ash. She took a deep breath. The Dominion ruled for 10,000 years by convincing the galaxy that resistance was impossible. They never understood what made humans different. It was not our technology. It was not our strength. It was that we looked at the impossible and said we would figure it out. She smiled, and we always did. Marcus Cole stood beside her, older now but still burning with the same fire that had kept him alive through 60 years of slavery. "Ready, Captain?"